do me a favor and close your eyes. I want you to think back to the first lesbian film you ever watched. For some of you, it was the satirical story of a conversion therapy camp gone right. For others, it was a tale of shunning and closeted despair that ended in tragedy. For me, it was two teenage girls so obsessed with each other, they committed matricide just to be together.
That explains a lot.
The point is, the first lesbian film you ever watched probably changed your life, or at the very least your perspective on it. To finally see what you had only secretly dreamt of was thrilling, arousing, and maybe even a little terrifying. But hopefully it was comforting. A small reassurance that maybe you weren't going to hell for who you loved. Maybe there wasn't anything wrong with you. And just maybe the first lesbian film you ever watched made you feel okay, even proud to be gay. Too bad the lesbian film is dead. Or is it? I know what you're thinking. Evelyn, the lesbian film isn't dead. After all, we just watched that cute rom-com about two teen girls who deface property and rightfully go to prison for it. I mean, fall in love and face no real consequences, not to mention the Half of It and Happiest Season, both recent-ish lesbian movies, although neither was released in theaters. But that doesn't matter, because what about all those foreign and independent films I'm always yammering on about but none of you ever watch? Those films are definitely released in theaters. Well, 3 theaters. Now, keep in mind, I'm just a simple YouTuber who does shaky research, if any, but I couldn't help noticing that the only lesbian films that seem to achieve any kind of mainstream theatrical success are these kind. In fact, I even made a video about it. And no shade to the lesbian period film. I love lesbian period films, but I can't help but wonder, where are all the mid-tier lesbian contemporary films? You know, movies like Bound, Disobedience, and Kissing Jessica Stein.
It's problematic at best.
I know. Sure, they weren't box office hits, but they did decently well, and they did so while being pretty damn gay, which, according to Hollywood, is nearly impossible without a corset. But why is that? As you guys know, there are more people in the world who identify as straight than those who don't, which means the majority of people who go to movies are,
wait for it,
straight. So if a lesbian film wants a studio's blessing, it has to abide by the Hollywood-defined straight gaze, aka the movie must star at least one upper B-list to A-list actress, preferably Caucasian, definitely feminine, definitely thin, and of course a random A-list actor whose character barely fits into the plot, but he's just there so the men watching don't feel weird. And even when your film ticks all the right boxes, it's still ridiculously difficult to secure financing. Carol, the straight gaze blueprint, took over a decade to get made. Mona Fastfold, who directed The World to Come, shared how difficult it was to secure financing as a female director for a female-led narrative. Katherine Heigl had to crowdfund Jenny's Wedding to finish the film, although having watched Jenny's Wedding, I have a feeling they didn't hit their goal. And the Academy Award-winning Monster was almost released straight to video because it was so hard to find a distributor. And if these straight gaze darlings were so difficult to get made and distributed, well, it's no wonder the same types of mid to large budget lesbian films keep getting made over and over again. That's what gets greenlit. Now, it's easy to point the finger at Hollywood and Hollywood only, and rightfully so, but it's worth mentioning. Hollywood finances what it thinks will make it the most money. Now, I hate to give you guys homework, but back in 2016, director Kanchi Wichmann wrote an excellent article entitled "Lesbian Films Don't Make Money" about the obstacles she faced while trying to finance a film. And while most of them were systemic, aka Hollywood be Hollywood, they weren't all systemic. I'll link her article in the description, along with another article about lesbian filmmakers and their struggle to fill seats for screenings of lesbian films. And let's be honest, when it comes to lesbian films, if you build it, they will come is not necessarily true. Which leads me to a sentiment that I've heard expressed many times within the gay lady community. I I believe the notion that lesbian films are bad is a fallacy, but it's also a difficult one to prove because what we like and don't like is subjective. But what I think it boils down to is the numbers. There are far fewer lesbian films than non-lesbian films in existence, and the vast majority are independently made. There is a huge quality difference between Carol and The Incredibly True Adventures of Two Girls in Love. There is also a huge quality difference between Disobedience and Lost in Delirious. The difference is money. That's not to say independent lesbian films are bad. I love independent lesbian films, but it is rare to find a movie that can't be made better with more money. Many of these indies lack polish or professionally trained talent, or in some cases, lighting. I'm convinced that if lesbian films were financed in the same amounts as non-lesbian films, lesbian films are bad wouldn't even be a thing. And to be clear, every lesbian film with a decent sized budget is not good. Like, I might not personally love The Kids Are Alright, but I can recognize that it is a straight up unicorn. A non-period film written and directed by a gay lady with a $4 million budget starring A-listers and the children of A-listers. It was an exception and an outlier in 2010, and it still is to this day. But there is something else different about today that might also be contributing to the death of the lesbian film, but I kinda like it. Are you a Hulu hoe, a Netflix freak, maybe a Prime Video paramour? Of course you are. We all are, which makes us all complicit in the killing of the lesbian film.
Really?
Okay, that might have been a little dramatic, but it's also a tiny bit true. There are far more lesbian films being created or exclusively distributed by streaming services than there are being traditionally released. There's also a plethora of gay-ass TV shows, limited series, web series, and short films available on many of these platforms, and the quality of some of them is stunning. The ease in which most of us can watch something gay in our homes, possibly even to our tastes, is unprecedented. Access to gay shit has never been like this before, and gay shit itself has never been so plentiful. Actually, do me a favor and comment down below real quick. What were the last 3 lesbian films you watched in an actual movie theater? Now, I know COVID is going to affect your answers, and where you live will also affect them, but I'm just curious, because streaming has completely transformed how we consume content and what content we can consume. Personally, I see streaming as a positive, and I feel like high-quality, mid-tier contemporary lesbian films can not only find a new home on streaming platforms, but I think they can thrive. I mean, Happiest Season did numbers for Hulu. When Bruised hit Netflix, it was #1 in 21 countries in its first 5 days. Then there's I Care A Lot. Bitches loved I Care A Lot. And yes, I am bitches. Now, I know there's been a recent spate of gay shows being canceled, and trust me, I'm not trying to defend silly-ass Netflix, but I think it's worth noting that most of these cancellations have come from the streaming services or networks that have the most gay shit to start with. Like, it's a lot easier to not kill your children when you don't have any children.
We don't need no labels.
Last but not least, I want to wade a little into the political side of the lesbian movie issue because being hated on the internet is my love language. Now, I don't typically talk about actual people on this channel. I like to stick to movies, TV shows, and praising Tessa Thompson and Kate Winslet for being attractive. But recently, my girl Jojo Siwa pissed off all the lesbians when she admitted that she's not a fan of the word lesbian, which got me thinking, if there's a percentage of gay women who don't identify with or just don't like the word lesbian, how does that impact the lesbian film? Does it impact the lesbian film? Are young queer people less likely to watch or seek out content targeted to lesbians or content even using the word lesbian? I really want to know what you guys think. Is the lesbian film dying or just transforming into something else? Is there a point in fighting for more mainstream lesbian theatrical releases when no one shows up to watch the movie because they can't peel themselves off the couch until they finish the last episode of Outer Range,
even though it ended stupidly and I deeply regret the time I spent watching it?
And what do you want to see going forward in lesbian cinema? Personally, I am all in on streaming. We are slowly but surely getting more diverse and less tragic stories, and every successful gay thing that makes money and draws viewership is a win in my book. And even though I believe streaming is the future, if you are in a position where you're able to watch a queer film or a film with queer characters in a theater, please do so, because it took more than you can possibly imagine to get that film to that theater. That is it for the video. I want to give a quick shout out to my newest patron, Brianna. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please don't talk shit about my girl JoJo in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.
Ain't it nice to be around one I love I found? Ain't it sweet to hold your hand in mine forever? Just our fingers intertwined. Hey, the feeling is mine. It's a sweet treat to be in love with you, baby. Such a sweet